Welcome back to another episode of Void City Customization. I am Dan, and today we're just going to jump right into this. Again, I'm starting off with a figure that isn't quite finished yet, and going to finish it throughout the course of this video. I have a few things that I have prepared in advance, which I will go over in just a moment. Other than that, I have a piece that I ordered off of eBay, which is the old man Bruce Wayne head, as you can see there. All you have to do is go on eBay and search old Bruce Wayne action figure head or custom action figure heads in general, and a lot of them have different options for what scales to order in. I ordered mine for a 7-inch scale, and there he is. Hopefully today we will be finishing up the paint on that head and completing this figure, as well as also finishing his weapon that he should have had from the start. I believe that is why this figure came with alternate hands to begin with. He comes with a trigger hand, so I'm fairly certain he was meant to come with his sonic assault blaster, whatever you would like to call it. It's the weapon he had for half of a page out of the entire graphic novel or entire miniseries, whichever way you first came upon The Dark Knight Returns. He uses it, hits Superman with it. Superman immediately takes it from him and crushes it. So it's kind of funny that it's one of the weapons that you always see this figure come with up until now. Now that these figures are not allowed to come with guns, that's kind of become an issue. So even when it's not really a gun, this is it looks like a blaster, I guess you could say, but it shoots sound. It doesn't shoot any kind of projectile whatsoever. So I think it's funny that it's okay for Red Hood to come with a crowbar, which is the weapon that Joker beat him to death with, but he can't come with guns. That's sort of funny. I still struggle to understand that weapon accessory decision. It just seems like it doesn't make any sense. But that's just me. Let's get down to it. So right here, we have got the sonic weapon. I have kind of pieced this together out of two old weapons from a Spawn figure. I do believe two pretty gigantic guns, and I wanted to use them to kind of piece together this one. So obviously I'll throw up a graphic of that, and you can kind of see next to it what this looks like. I think I did a pretty good job. The only additional part is right in the front. That is the head of a very small picture hanging nail. I just put that in there, but all the rest of these are just cut apart, carved down, reshaped pieces from two larger weapons, gorilla glued together into this one, and we're going to be painting that silver today. It's going to match how it looks in the comic. One other accessory that I have for this guy now that I forgot to mention is using the original head that came with the figure. I carved out the mouth there from the helmet, and now he has an empty helmet he can hold. Similar to what I did with the Peacemaker figure, I didn't have to carve anything for that helmet. This one, it's all one piece, so you do have to carve the mouth out of there, so be very careful when doing that. I just used a brand new blade I put in there and carved very slowly, using as little pressure as I could to make sure I didn't go over any of the lines. I basically would just carve through from the center outwards towards the edges, so I didn't go over any of the edges. So as you can see, now he's got a helmet. It still has the hole for the peg on the inside there. It's not going to fit on any one of these action figures' heads or anything like that, but he can hold it in his hand and it looks nice. Or Superman can hold it if you want him to be ripping it off of Batman's face. One other thing I'm sure you could do is if you applied some heat to this in some way, or some sort of tools or whatnot with some heat, I'm sure you could melt like a little kind of scrunched, pinched handprint like right into the front of the face, so it looks like Superman grabbed it and like crushed it down. So if you wanted that sort of a prop, I'm sure you could do that too, and then maybe make it fit in one of Superman's hands. But that's going a bit further than I wanted to with this. I just wanted to have him with the helmet off, and I also wanted to give him the prop that he was supposed to have, or the accessory. So pretty much I'm just going to select my paints and get started here. I don't need to do anything with the helmet. I'm not going to be painting the figure today or doing anything with that really. I'm just going to be painting the head of Bruce Wayne here. I think this thing looks excellent. Hopefully I will be able to do this justice. Probably going to start off with the gun because that's a lot easier. That way it can dry while I'm working on the face. So I'm going to be starting out with these paints here by AV. This is called Game Color. That's the company down there, AV, and this is just silver. Shake that up real good, make sure it's mixed. I just got my little paint tray here. I always end up using a bit too much paint. I'd rather have a bit too much and then I have to stop. I'm just probably going to use this little brush right here. And here we go. I may end up doing this in stages just so that parts of it can dry and I have a base to set it on maybe. And being that this is a darker surface I'm painting over, I'll probably have to do more than one coat anyways. I really hope this paint adheres. That's another problem sometimes with plastic. I guess we'll find out. I'm trying to kind of go all in the same direction just so that the brush strokes will kind of not look crazy. I'm not the best painter in the world. Toast is far better at this than me. Half the time I just want to give these all to him and say go for it. It would probably come out far better. That's starting to look a lot closer to it now with the silver. Look at that. Looking a lot better. It's going to need a couple more coats though, probably, as you can see from the top there. Need a little bit more paint than I thought I would. I think I may leave the grip the way it is, just to avoid paint rub. I'll probably go back over this again with one more coat. I'm just going to let this dry for now, and then we will get back to it. So I have completed a second coat of silver paint on this gun. I think it looks better now being silver a little bit. And I'm going to drill 3 small holes in the front there just to give it a bit more of a detail. So I'm going to do that next. Alright, so while we are waiting for his blaster to dry so I can finish that, I think I'm going to start painting Bruce Wayne. So first things first, I'm going to do the skin tone and then I'll do the hair on top of that. So first I want to select good color Got 3 different ones here I'm going to choose from. Again, by AV. These are all model color acrylic paints. And I've got 3 different skin tones here. I'm going to see which one I like the best. Small tip from one of our previous videos, and I'll just show it here again. I always put a dab of paint on most of my colors on the top if they're ones that are hard to tell apart. So that way you can see what they look like dried on plastic. So you can hold them up to other colors to compare if you have to, or just so you can see what they look like when they're done to pick the right one. I don't want them to be super pale, but I also don't want them to have really dark skin tone. I think what I'm going to use is basic skin tone, this one, probably about 3 drops, and then maybe add 1 drop of this one, light flesh tone, just to lighten it up a tad. And I will keep the darker skin tone out here also that I had just for later, for any other details I want to do, such as lips or any kind of shadows under the eyes maybe. I'm going to use a toothpick here. I'm just going to mix up this paint so I have the 2 different colors here. Alright. I think that looks pretty decent. Let's try it out. Now Bruce's head here, I hot glued onto the end of this old paintbrush, so I kept the end of it. And this is what I tend to use these for, is glue the heads onto here with just a dab of hot glue just to hold it in place. You can just peel it right off later, but that way you have kind of a post to hold it on so you can paint it from all different angles. So let's get to work on this guy. Let's look at it one last time here as it arrived. All right, let's get to work. See what we can do here. I'll try to keep this in frame as much as I can. If I don't, I'm gonna fast forward through this anyways, so see you at the finish line. Try to adjust the angle there for you so maybe we'll stay in focus a little bit better. Okay, now let's let that sit for a second while we pick out our hair color. I think for the hair color, I'm going to start with this Stonewall Gray and see how dark that is. And if I need to lighten it up or darken it, I'll either add a bit of white or a bit of black to it. And we will see where that gets us. I don't know, I think right off the bat this gray might be perfect. And now the reason I'm trying to be quick about this is so that if I need to touch up the skin paint at all, I still have it here while it is wet. All right, let's take a look. All right, there we go. think that looks pretty good. Now I just have to let that dry a little bit more, and I will do his eyebrows and his lips and his eyes, which is the part I dread the most. Alright, so for the eyes and the eyebrows, I imagine I'm probably going to use a toothpick for those details. I believe I have one I already shaved down a little bit right here. So I made the tip on this one a bit sharper. I'm going to use that just because they're such small details and I don't want to mess them up. So I've got white and I've got black. Black for his eyebrows, black for his pupils, and white for his eyes. So I'll shake those up. And now I'm going to add a little bit of black over here. Obviously don't need very much at all. White, I'm just going to dump in the same cup. Again, don't need very much at all. I probably always put a little bit too much, but I just always want to be sure I don't have to stop and get more out later. Alright, here we go again. This may not stay in focus too much, but obviously I'll show it again when it's done. If it doesn't come out good, either way, it's going to be fast forwarded. Essentially what I'm doing here is using this toothpick to paint in what would be his eyelashes, which help to define the white of his eyes against the skin tone. There is a lot of breath holding when it comes to painting like this. Very nerve-wracking, and I dread the day my hands start to shake all the time. So right now they only shake some of the time. Alright, so there's that. Now, just for the pupils, which again, I always use a toothpick for. This is very tough. You always want to get them both to be aiming in the same place. It's not always the easiest thing to do. Let's see if we can do it on the first try. Going to use one more darker color here really quick. Not that much darker. This color isn't that much darker. It's just kind of meant to make just the detail in his face stand out a little bit more. So I'm probably going to put just a little bit on and not too much at all. Just add a little bit of dry brushed white to his sideburns. Finish his eyebrows, his eyes, lips, a little bit of dark underneath his eyes, and there we go. Alright, so we have skipped ahead a little bit here, and here he is. This is my completed Unmasked Armored Dark Knight Returns Batman, or I guess you could just call him Bruce Wayne at this point, whichever works. So he is now done, he is now fully painted as far as I wanted to paint him, and he has accessories that are now fitting of the scene that he comes from. So that is fantastic. So let's just do a quick little recap here of the figure. I'll show you the accessories I made for him, and that'll do it for today. So here he is. There's his face one more time. A little bit of white on the hair there. I think it came out all right. And that was again from a plain unpainted head that I got off of eBay. That was 3D printed. I'm not quite sure where the original design came from. However, this head worked out perfectly, and it is scaled correctly for a 7-inch figure, which is one of the most important parts. What I did off camera here was I painted his belt. Painted that from gray to yellow to match the comic just a little bit better. I did not paint his armor pieces to blue because I've never really been a huge fan of the blue, at least not too much blue. Obviously for this scene, I liked the blue cape, but as far as the outfit goes, I thought it was better off in that gray color. Otherwise, with the blue in between here, on the unarmored parts and the blue cape, it would turn his whole body blue except for his belt. I just didn't think that was very necessary, so I kind of liked how it's a mixture now here of the comic version with the blue and gray and yellow belt, but also sort of the movie Armored Batman from Batman v Superman, which was more of the gray and silver look. As I mentioned, his cape is now also blue, as you can see there. I removed it, which was very easy. I didn't even have to heat the figure. I literally just carefully peeled the cape off. It popped right out of the notch in the back where not much glue was used at all, and there's very little glue in the front on these two tabs here. Just be careful when you're pulling those out. You don't want to deform them or stretch them or rip them. Sometimes there is more glue than other times. I got lucky. So I masked off the notch for the back and then the two little tabs right underneath here, just so they wouldn't get painted. Sprayed the whole rest of it using this right here. Actually, it's the first time I've used this type. It's Rust-Oleum Outdoor Fabric Paint, ink blue. It's very interesting. I got it because it ends up being flexible and because I thought it would work well, and it did. It coated the cape well. It's very flexible. It dried and cured perfectly, and it's not peeling off at all. Now the cape is glued back on. I used, again, my handy dandy Gorilla Super Glue with the brush and nozzle. I used the brush, as always. For painting the belt, I squeezed about 4 or 5 drops of this Game Color by AV. This is Sun Yellow. I used about 4 or 5 drops of that in my mixing cup, and then I dropped in 2 drops of Dead White, also by Game Color and AV. Mixed that up really well. Got a yellow I was happy with. There you go. I didn't go too many coats on that because I didn't want too thick of paint, because sometimes that can chip off of those softer pieces if it's not a spray vinyl and this was a brushed on acrylic. I also wanted it to have a little bit of a metallic look to it, or at least like a wear and tear. I left those brush strokes in there to kind of give it that look of it still had some usage and some wear, and it's not just a brand new flat yellow belt. Accessories, let's get into those because those are pretty cool, and he should have come with them. The trigger figure hand, meant for holding Batman's sound gun, and which, even though it's only in the story for 3 panels and no more, it's included typically with almost all versions of this figure that have come out in the past. However, starting with this one, seemingly doesn't come with it anymore, even though he came with the alternate trigger hand. I'm pretty sure he was supposed to come with this gun at some point. Even though technically it's not a gun, It's a sound wave blaster, doesn't shoot bullets or any sort of projectile. Warner Brothers still had a problem with it. Oh well. I guess that is what it is. So he needed one. As you guys saw earlier, I made one. I have painted it silver, and I added these 3 blue protrusions from the front there just to kind of give it some extra detail. As you can see right there, those are the same little blue pieces from that toy lightsaber piece that I used during the making of Mr. Freeze on some of the pieces of him. But that is the same thing. I just used a couple more pieces of it because I had it lying around. So that's why I keep those scraps. The other thing he uses during that fight is he pulls out a small yellow grenade after he blasts Superman in the face with a handful of acid that shoots out of his palm, because he's trying to distract Superman from figuring out why Green Arrow has arrived on the scene with the kryptonite arrow. So right after he blasts him in the face with the acid, he pulls out a napalm grenade and blows up like a whole city block right underneath Superman, even though the grenade's only literally tiny grenade sized. Well, in the comic it's yellow, and I didn't really have any yellow pieces lying around, and this has to go in and out of a hand, so paint scraping would be a big problem. Also, just a bright yellow grenade, that it just looks weird to me. It just seemed very strange to have a bright yellow grenade, so I made a different one. I had an extra grapnel launcher from the Curse of the White Knight Batman figure, and what I did is I cut the handle off of it, which leaves you with this right here. Now you got the one end, I drilled a hole in, we'll get to that. Then here's the other end where the handle got cut off of. So I did drill the hole in the end where the grapnel usually launches out from, just because it was really easy to center up the drill there. Now, why did I drill a hole in this? Because it can be used in 2 different ways. If you want him to hold this, just looking like a grenade basically, I have made this small plug that can go into the top there. And that can come right out of there. So that just goes right in there. It's a very small accessory, but it's just a little something to give it a bit more of a detail. But let's say he hits that button or whatever, or pops that top, hits the trigger, whatever, then we can make it look a bit more comic accurate by removing that plug and putting in this one, which now it's got the smoke shooting out the top just like it did in the comic once he activated that. And that can be manipulated. You can turn that however way you want depending on how he's holding it in his hand. But now he has that prop as well, so you can have him looking like he's about to throw the grenade in Superman's face. And before I forget, this smoke effect actually comes as the road flare with the Dr. Ian Malcolm figure, which is a Mattel Jurassic Park figure, part of the Amber collection, I believe it was called. I had that figure for a different custom, so I just had this road flare sitting around, and I thought that the smoke was a perfect color and a perfect shape and a perfect size for this prop. So I just cut the end off of it and trimmed it down to fit in the hole I had drilled in this grenade. And that's the same thing I did for the plug right here. That is the other end of the flare, like the bottom of it that didn't have the smoke coming out. And again, I just trimmed a tiny bit off of the lower edge that goes inside of the grenade, so I can leave the top part red and have that cap right there. And I think when it's complete, it works out pretty well. It looks pretty close to the comic, other than not being yellow, but I don't mind it not being yellow. Here he is holding his sonic sound blaster. Fits in his hand, works very well. And actually I just pretty much leave it in the hand and remove the entire hand when I need to, considering that hand is pretty much only for this gun, and this gun is only used one time. But whatever, I think it looks great. And here he is with his napalm grenade. I picked a Superman just to kind of replicate that scene a little bit of him trying to get the acid out of his eyes while missing with the punch. And that's right when Batman pulled out that napalm bomb to distract him. And I think this accessory works well with him. I think it definitely adds a lot more to the figure, and probably should have had something like that included with him all along. So there you have it. that is it for my custom armored Dark Knight figure. Unmasked, of course. Here he is holding his helmet again. That's the last accessory. And along with all of the rest here, I think now he's finally complete. So I'd like to thank everyone for sticking around through all that painting. Aside from that, hopefully you guys got some good tips today for making your own customs. And as always, if there's anything else in the future you have questions on, or any other customs you want to see, just drop a line right down in the comments below. And always remember to hit those subscriptions and those notifications so you can see when we make more customs. I've still got plenty to go and a whole bunch left to show you guys, and I know Toast is working on a whole bunch as we speak. So keep it here every week and we will be back with more custom work for you. Until then, I am Dan, and this has been Void City Customization, part of Void City Reviews. See you next time.